Hey everyone, Guneeta here from the 1947 Partition Archive. Today we're continuing our 75 Days of Partition series. Today's day 5, I believe. And today I've got Amardeep Singh here with me. He is a well-known filmmaker. He's written a number of books on heritage that has been, I guess Lost Heritage is the name of his book series, but heritage that has been impacted by the divisions caused at the time of partition, and specifically Sikh heritage. So today he's going to be talking to us about the legacy of Guru Nanak and how that has been impacted via partition. So if you want to go back, you can look at the rest of our micro podcasts from this series. We started on June 3rd. We're going on till August 17th. That's exactly 75 days from the time that the Mountbatten Plan was announced on June 3rd till the Radcliffe Line was announced on August 17th. So you can go back and watch the rest of the series to learn a little bit about partition. So today's event is going to be slightly longer. Today will not be a micro podcast, but we're going to get a beautiful presentation from Amardeep ji about the legacy of Guru Nanak. So Amardeep ji, I'm going to turn it over to you and we can go ahead and I guess load your presentation. I think you might be muted, so let me unmute your mic. There we go.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Guneeta. Can you now? Okay, great. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're cutting out a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're cutting out a bit, but we can hear you.
Okay, so now thanks, Guneeta, for giving this opportunity, and thanks to the entire Partition Archive. Excellent job. And this is a great platform where we can continue amongst communities the finer things associated with the partition and which is close to my heart, which is trying to understand how partition has impacted the legacy. Can I request you to just share my presentation, and I'll take it over from there. So I have a presentation which has Guneeta, is it possible? Okay, great. So see the full screen now?
No, actually it's cutting off. It's cutting off quite a bit.
Okay.
You might want to go into slideshow mode.
Let me know. Okay, I'll do that. I'll stop screen. Okay.
So everyone, you're watching 75 Days of Partition. Today's day 5. We've got Amardeep Singh here. He's a well-known filmmaker, and he has written a number of books on lost heritage that has been impacted by partition, specifically Sikh heritage. And today he's going to be sharing how partition has impacted how we remember, how it's impacted legacies, especially of Guru Nanak. And right now,
let's just, I'm going to share the entire screen, okay?
Okay, sure.
You see the full screen now, Guneeta?
Yeah, we can see the full screen.
Just confirm that.
Great, looks great.
So the topic is impact of partition on the legacy of Guru Nanak, right? So art and the map that I'm showing here, if you can see the dark brown section, this is an entire mass that over the last 8 years we have traversed in the form of different, and this expands from India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. Basically started from the works in Pakistan and then expanded down to these nine. To share with you is not a theoretical presentation. It's going to be entirely during these journeys that we have done across nine nations in this landmass.
Sounds
It's all walk the talk, right?
Amardeep, you are cutting out a little bit. I could suggest maybe turning off your camera. That might help with the bandwidth. Somehow your voice is cutting off a bit.
All right. Do you want the place and try this? I know it's going to disrupt, but can the audience do that? I mean, can we start maybe 5 minutes from now, and I can problem?
Yeah, unfortunately if we end the broadcast, a lot of people are kind of signed on to this particular broadcast.
Yeah. Let me do the stop cam.
Yeah, there we go. That should work, I think. Yeah, let's try that.
Okay.
But if you can we bring your presentation back on?
Okay, are you able to? Is this Guneeta? Is this any better?
We can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Guneeta, can you confirm, please?
We can hear you. It seems you might not be able to hear me.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to stop my camera, and I'm going to go with this. So I was saying that this is all the walk the talk. And basically, in the area mapping of the region, what are the bodies of work based on which we are going to making this presentation? So first body of work is basically Lost Heritage series, and then we did 2 documentaries, and the books were basically.
Can we get your presentation back on?
Focused on the Sikh legacy remnants of Pakistan, and
it has dropped off your presentation. Your slides have
presentation is dropped off.
Yeah. Yes. If you can reshare that screen, that would be great.
Are you able to see the screen now?
Yes. So let's put it. We can get it back on here. There we go. Yes, we can see it. There we go. Perfect. Yeah. Maybe you can tell us about it now.
Okay. So what I was saying is that so the bodies of work that have been done out of this mapping across 9 nations are 3 segments. First is a body of work in the form of 2 books, in which we mapped the Sikh legacy remnants across 120 Pakistan. The second body of work is the 2 documentaries which we did in Pakistan, titled Peering Soul and Peering Warrior, and they're available are on YouTube, and I've given the channel name. But the main body of work that probably we feel very closely associated with now is, for the last 4 years, we've dedicated our lives towards doing a 24-episode doc called Allegory Travels, and that has taken us across 9 nations, and we are now going down the path of making Punjabi and then Hindi and Urdu, but the English version is already there. It's available in totality on thegurunanak.com. Version is being released now. So most of the talk that I'm going to do, in fact, all the talk that I'm going to do is based on these 3 bodies of work. Since we're going to be talking about Guru Nanak and how his legacy has got impacted as an outcome of partition, I want to start a 2-minute trailer of the docu-series to set the stage of who Guru Nanak is. And then we get down to how his legacy is. Just give me a shout when you hear the voice so I know that you are able to hear it.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you hear it now?
Guru Nanak, the 15th century, is a guiding force for many. He spent over 2 decades traveling to distant lands to engage in philosophical dialogues with people of diverse cultures and belief systems. Words and music fully imparted experiential insights, fearlessly challenged the binary constructs of society, and opposed gender, religious, racial, and class inequalities.
My name is Amardeep Singh, as narrated in the earliest historical text. Guru
नानक देव जी ने हमको परम पिता परमात्मा का नाम बताया. He had his own message of oneness of humanity, and that cut across all religions. 530 years ago, coming, uncharted lands, but he's still making such a big impact. And he had permanence, which was carried on.
So I hope this introduces who Guru Nanak is. I mean, he's known to most of the people, I'm sure, in this presentation who are attending this talk. Guru Nanak's legacy was impacted by severely impacted. Though more than, I would say, in my estimate, there are more than 70 million people who believe in Guru Nanak, but though unfortunately we have boxed him into the Sikh faith. He was on a quest. He traveled far and wide. And the Hindus, you take the Punjabis, you take the many Muslims who have a association with him, the Rabbis. My estimate is we are easily above 60 to 70 million people. But the official numbers, as the first of Nanak, he stated as 28 million, because that's what it's boxed as the founder of the Sikh faith. And I always say he was beyond that. He was not finding a faith. The faith came about later. So if you look at it, he's associated with the Sikh faith. But then he was born in Pakistan, which at that time was one. And the way I define that territory is by this entire and I'm going to go down the path of uh, religion versus cultures, and how the basis of the two nation theory impacted some integrated at the grassroots level. And the division point in my mind, though I divided so black and white distinct, but if you look at the river Sindhu, which is the Indus River, there are two cultures that existed over a period of time that developed. One was the Turki, which is the writes in his own words. He says Khorasan. He talks about Babur having come into the region of Punjab, and he writes Khorasan Hindustan Daraya. Basically, he's saying Babur having created havoc in the region of Khorasan and now entered the land of the Sindhustan. Sindhustan, basically the culture was Turki. Khorasan people, if you take religion out of this, we're not talking about religion, we're talking about cultures. If the people on the west of the Sindhu River, Central Asian region, was known as Khorasan, and the people there were known as Turkis. And if you see at most of India, classify this civilization as Turkey, right? And the people on the east of Sindhu, when the Turki came on this side, did not pronounce the word sir. And so therefore, like in the Urdu, you have the word hafta. In Hindi, you have sapta, the week. The sir becomes a her. And similarly, Sindhu was called by them with an emphasis of H. And what I'm trying to say is, as we have in our minds today, that Hinduism is a religion, well, about 1,000 years back, there was no such boundaried faith. I mean, it had the landmass on the east of Sindhu had diverse traditions, diverse people, diverse thoughts. Buddhism. I mean, today you're using all these terms as isms because that's what British gave us. But the followers of Buddha, the Mahavira, the people who did not believe, the people who did not have any opinion, and so many diverse thoughts coexisted out here. But took over. There are two civilizational aspects that came about: the Turki civilization and the Sindhu civilization, which is the Hindu, which over a period of time has got associated as the Hindu faith. And I always say we have to differentiate a religion versus a culture of a land. So one of the things that I want to actually talk about here is when we talk about the British who came in. It's the British who rose when they took over the throne of Delhi from the Mughals. For good about 800 to 900 years, the Turkis were ruling in the. So when they took over from the Mughals, they saw the faith of the Mughals as the one of the Abrahamic religions, and for them that Abrahamic religion was one mass of the faith, and the other mass, which was the Hindu culture, they were not able to understand. So they basically went about calling that same entire landmass as Hindu, and that's how the term over the last 1,000 years with the Turkey invasions and then the British coming inside, so it starts getting solidified. And this is an interesting article that I'm showing you out here. As the people from start migrating towards the west, and it's a very old paper cutting, but look at it as people landing on the way to Canada, landing at Hong Kong. And what does it say? Our first invasion by the Hindus and Mohammedans, by the people of British India, right? And they are going by two distinctions. The two cultures they're talking about, Hindus and Mohammedans. But now slowly from the Turkeys, it's become defined as Mohammedans, because that's what they took the religion from. But Hindus, if you read the fine print out here, you will find actually they're mentioning Sikhs. All of them who are coming into and if you read the fine print out here, Punjab and Mohammedans from the Punjab are landing in Hong Kong. What I'm trying to say is that these divisions were not so big. And when the British handed over the region to India and Pakistan, I will read out of partition what happened in on both the sides is that especially Punjab. I mean, it got left from the Pakistan side, and the Muslims left from the East Punjab. But if you look at as the constitution which the Indian government has carried on, even if you look at the Article 25(2) of the Indian Constitution, though the societies do not believe in this, many of the small the religious have issues about this thing, but this is what was inherited by us. You cannot shy away from it because the Constitution of India below the clauses reference 25b refers to Hindus shall be construed as persons professing the Sikh, Jain, or Buddhist religion, and the reference of Hindu religious institutions. So they painted this broader brush, and when the partition of 1947 happened, the two nation theory, I asked this question, was it really based on religion? Because if you are looking at cultural aspect, including every one inside this Sikh, Jain, Buddhist, and pegging the Muslims, then you have to look at what Kabir was saying. Kabir, 550 years back, was not talking about Hindu and Muslim. He's saying, Hindu do hu samjhaun. He says, I explain to both the Turkis and the Hindus, not from a religion point of view, but the people of this subset, that what are you fighting for? And as the British hardened these boundaries, what was on a lap was the partition, and this is what we actually inherited. The red line is the East Punjab, Pakistan 1947, which today happens to be Bangladesh, and West Pakistan is today Pakistan, and what is now in the center is India. And the line has not been drawn up is because in the northern regions, the two nations continue to still not be able to decide where the boundary line is. But this is what we inherited. Now, how did this impact Guru Nanak's legacy? Guru Nanak's beauty was that he was trying to bring together people. For him, divisions based on religion Hindus and Sikhs, he was going deeper down. And I will want to show this from an Indic tradition. The people of the Indian how did he see them? Because much before the word Hindu was coined, in the Vedic scriptures, there's no word Hindu. It came about with the Turkey invasions. That's where the word Sindhu started becoming Hindu. And Guru Nanak, he does use the word Hindu because he's referring to the Sindhu civilization, right? But when he talks about it in this verse, show that he's talking from the Indic cultures, and then we'll go to the Islamic aspect. He's talking about the 6 philosophical systems which are of the Indian subcontinent. And these are all segments from the Guru Nanak docu-series, which is available on thegurunanak.com. I've bits and pieces to build it into the legacy of Guru Nanak. So I'm going to play this, how Guru Nanak is talking about the 6 philosophical systems still in the Indian subcontinent, but they were not branded as Hinduism as about 1,000 years back. These are age-old. They are Sankhya, Yoga, Vedanta, and so on and so forth. And what does he have to say about that? And what he sees as the paramount above traditions is what this video is about.
Open-mindedness to discuss and assimilate diverse philosophical views has been a unique strength of the Indic culture.
And says that the diverse philosophical systems, 6 philosophical systems which Guru Nanak is talking about, but what he's saying is that above all, oneness of mankind, wherever it is discussed, that's what I give importance to. He's being very clear about it. And legacy is divided today. And when I look at it from another verse of his, and this has been recorded. So when we were in Afghanistan, we went in search. I mean, Afghanistan has taken a lot of beating, and I'll bring about in this presentation how impacted a congruent culture that existed from Afghanistan right up till the Gangetic plain, how it's been impacted. Eminence of that, you see it in a tangible legacy form through the musicians. And we went in search for these Muslim musicians. In Pakistan, you have the Rababi tradition. They are the descendants of the Muslim singers who are the descendants of Bhai Mardana, the lifelong who traveled with him for 22 years. But they are the descendants in Pakistan. In Afghanistan, these are not the descendants. Bards who actually, before the Russian invasion of the Afghanistan, before 1990s, in the Gurdwaras. And we went in search for the descendants of the last singer of this tradition, because they've stopped now. And we requested them to play for us. And beautifully, what they sang is what's the problem of what we have inherited today as the two nation theory perils, right? Guru Nanak is talking about it 550 years back as cultures, because each one is trying to outwit the other. And here's what he sings.
خودی با مردم انجای کلام شدیم ما به می قابل پیدا شدیم و خدمت کن عرض کنم که من موسیقی را شوق داشتم و یاد گرفتم، تهذیبی یاد گرفتم و همین چیزهای مذهبی هندو و سکا را یاد گرفتم که فعلا من درس میتونم به می گردوارای هندوها و سکا اینا را درس میتونم و برای شما یک برز برسانم که من چنانک سر یاد گرفتم همیشه اینی چیزها را یاد گرفتیم و یک شعرش کل پروان کتب قرآن پوتی پندت رہے پوران نانک نام پیمان کرتا تو کو جان کر پروان کتے پراتی پندت رہے
Kateb and Quran on one side, Pothi and the scriptures on the Indic culture side and the Abrahamic scriptures, already a strife based on religion started happening 550 years back. And what Guru Nanak is trying to tell the communities is rise above oneness of mankind. That's most important. Guru Nanak was trying to do that 550 years back in an environment where started taking the form of predominance of religious tugs of war, and that's where this whole emerges in 1947. British just actually further aggravated it by defining the cultures into religious divisions. Right now, from a Guru Nanak's point of view, who was born in Pakistan in Nankana Sahib, he in Kartarpur Sahib, the corridor which has been opened up recently in 2019. It's on the banks of the River Ravi. But he traveled 22 years across 9 countries. That's the slide I showed you right at the beginning. And we've traced his entire 24 episode docuseries on Guru Nanak. But from a Guru Nanak's legacy influencing point of view and how it got impacted, get down to this entire region, which I've actually painted in orange, is where I see the footprints of Guru Nanak. Either the people are still there, and that's more in the India because post-partition people moved. There are strands of that in Pakistan, but there's a huge void that has been caused because of partition. There's a huge footprint there in Afghanistan because this color is going right into Afghanistan, which has got impacted in the last 30 years. Talk about it, how the partition has resulted in that becoming a more serious an outcome, and in Sindh, Balochistan, and right up till the eastern parts of Iran, which is Zaidan and those areas. Legacy of Guru Nanak actually had spread. And today it is unfortunate when I see my in many of the forums they introduce to the non Sikhs or the non-followers of Guru Nanak, especially cultural people who actually come to the Gurdwaras or other places, and we tell them Sikhs are from Punjab, and we show them the map which is East Punjab. You know what? Such a big legacy, and we've restricted it down in terms of projections just to East Punjab. How did this happen, right? What what partition did is from the lands of 5 rivers, and again, while I'm looking at from a Nanak's legacy perspective, I want to mention this again. The which we all know, the impact of partition was not just to the followers, it was to all communities. So with all due respect, every community out here who's hearing this, the same story applies. The if we really go down the grassroots level, the stories will be a bit different. From the land of 5 rivers, 47 impelled or thrust the people into the Gangetic Plain. I'll start off with three regions, 3 or 4 regions I'll take in this presentation. What I call here is the severing of cultures. Political boundaries are boundaries which these boundaries which are created based on politics and impact on cultures over a period of time. And that's what you see in the case of the followers of Nanak. As I showed you, they once spread from till the Gangetic belt, and suddenly came these 2 lines in between as British leave these lands. One is Sindh after taking over Punjab. In 1849, they take over Ranjit Singh's empire. Ranjit Singh had passed away in 1839, but British after the second Anglo-Saxon inherit the take over the entire of Punjab, and what British had created as the line between the Afghanistan, the Pashtun area, and Punjab, which had extended right up till the present Durand line, which is the boundary of Pakistan and Afghanistan. It is a line which was actually by the Lahore Darbar of Ranjit Singh. Now, when British took it over, I don't know how many of you know the history of, but Durand was one of the army people who led an expedition to into Afghanistan. We did not allow the British to pass through Punjab into Afghanistan. So what they did was Durran led an experiment into Sindh, and from Sindh entered into Kandahar and then went into Ghazni. This was in one of their experiments into Afghanistan. And when British took over Punjab, to honor Durran and his contributions, they divided the Pashtun territory, and Punjab had expanded till that time. Lahore Darbar, I would say Lahore Darbar's territories had expanded till that. They call it as the Durran Line, right? And we are still calling it as a Durran Line. Now, that Durran Line was a loose definition. British left became a hardened political boundary. And then you had on this side, what the British drew was the Radcliffe Line for 10 million people getting uprooted from both the sides of all the faiths. But what happened to the fall because of these two demarcations that happened? People were actually, the followers of Guru Nanak's were hubbed in the region, which that's their nucleus. That's where the entire faith evolved. Now, when you have cultures which are not restricted boundaries, if a problem happens, let's say, if this boundary did not exist, if the problem was to happen in Afghanistan's west end of this culture, what will the culture do? They will, for some time, shift eastwards, because are like water balloons. I mean, you can push them from here, they will move that side, and so on and so forth. And on the east side, they will move towards the west. But ultimately, they'll find the balance and come back to where the roots actually are. But two lines right in the midst of an entire region of culture, they can go nowhere now. People who are stuck in Afghanistan, now if the cultural issues start happening, and which did happen post the Russian Revolution, and we know the history of Afghanistan, the Hindu and the Sikh community, I don't call them as Hindu and Sikhs. The more you go westwards, I call them as the Nanak Panthi cultures. They are the, whatever be their name, Bansri Lal or Santosh Kumar or Chebol Singh, they are all followers of the diverse, loosely held traditions. It's their belief system. But that belief system could not move because of the formation of these two lines, which does not allow them to move. And what happened thereafter from Afghanistan is, when the problem happened in the 90s and thereafter, they've all either they would fly from Afghanistan, or they go into Europe or go into the Western world, and they have to restart their life. That, in some ways, a big the Radcliffe Line 1947, because there's an entire sandwiching of the region that has happened. And I will share with you from one of the remote areas, as we were mapping the legacy of Guru Nanak in Gardes, what this person about, what this society was, and how he feels about it. This is a local man telling us.
We are standing at the site where once existed the Gardes Gurdwara. This Gurdwara got destroyed in the political unrest in Afghanistan. The Gardes community has now dispersed from the city.
اسم من اکرام الدین از پکتیا، مرکز گردز، قریب بازار کنه. فیلم که شما مشاهده میکنید همه دیوم از سال هستم که یا ما بسیار خوب بودیم. من از 30 سال 35 سال پیش قصه در امسال جور بود، رفت آماد داشتیم در امسال از یاد خانه‌ای از حتی در تویای از اشتراک میکردیم. ما کدام مراسم می بود ما را دعوت میداد، می آمدیم اونجا اشتراک میکردیم. خلاصه گپی که خیلی خورد بچه بودم، من حتی خلاولی رفتیم ما در فامیلی گپا فتیش داشتیم دیگه. حالا آماده دیگه در امسالشون هم به این عادت از خانهایشون هم تکه تکه و دیگه. خواهی شما همیست که جوش ها پس حالت سابقه بیاید اینجا، ما خوشحال هستیم.
So, I mean, this is the emotion of a person, Ikramuddin, who lived with this community, and how he's desiring that I wish those times could return, and people come back and build their place and re because they're all people of the same land. And he recalls his childhood days when they all used to come together at the Gurdwara. What they in Afghanistan, generally people don't call it as Gurdwaras, they call them as Dharamshal. And Dharamshal, from an Indian centric term, or Pakistan, when they say Dharamshal, it is basically a place of worship of the Hindu or the Sikh cultures, right? I'm going to move down. I'm going to start in the region of Pakistan, from lower Indus region, and then get into Punjab, because Punjab is where Nanak's followers are generally associated with, and we forget these fringe the areas around Punjab where and Sindh and Balochistan, what I've shaded here along the river Indus, while the were right up till up till Rajasthan and so on and so forth. But if you look at the region 50 kilometers east of river, going right up till the Khojak Pass, what I've listed, I've put in a dark brown shade out here, Sindh and Balochistan region. This region before partition is what I call as the Panthis. Because in this region, even if you go today, and in my second book, I've devoted about 110 pages to the Nanak Panthi region. I've gone and actually looked at the practices and what they do and how they live. Because in my mind, it's a beautiful to understand what the past was through. Because what partition has done is it's thrown people from Punjab and also from these lands, but some of the people who have stayed back, they have become very inwards to hold to their as they were pre-1947. The people who moved from Sindh and Balochistan into India, they have dispersed into the broad tradition. That's why I started by saying, when you say the word Hindu, it's a culture, because it has multiplicity inside it. What philosophy are you following? What angles are you following? Who are the gods and goddesses? There's a cultural inside that when the Sindhis and the Balochis came into Bombay and to the other areas, over the 7 decades traveling to distant India, over the 7 decades, and I'll show some of the works which you can read to understand how that entire culture has got dispersed. But we've known from our forefathers how fondly they were associated with Guru Nanak, and their present generation, if I look at the Sindhi community abroad, dispersed community across the world. But if I look at in Singapore, there's a large Sindhi community. When I look at their next generations, very few are able to associate with Guru Nanak. Very few are not, I would say 99% of them don't even know their languages, don't even know who they are. They've just basically lost the entire thing. And I always say this is that one of the reasons probably the Sindhis and Balochis have lost spiritual point of view is because they've not had any land. The Sindhis, I'm saying Sindhis not from the ones who are staying there, the Muslims. I'm saying the Sindhi Hindus, the believers of Nanaks, or Jains and others from these regions who moved out. They don't have any land. The entire Sindh and Balochistan was severed from the broader subcontinent, and therefore the entire culture, as they dispersed, has got adapted into the local culture. So if you look at a Sindhi in Indonesia, while he is still a Sindhi, his practices have actually become very Indonesian, and in Singapore they become very Singaporean. In India they become in terms of whichever area that they're staying in, their gods, their worship practices, everything has evolved. One generation used to read the Guru Granth Sahib, they used to follow Guru Nanak, all that is dispersed now. So that's one of the major severe impact of on account of partition. And if you go into this region, I've had the opportunity to go into this region right up till the Khojak Pass, and I've tried region, and I've spent time with the people of the followers of Nanak Panthi communities, and I've seen their closeness to the faith, which you don't find with the Sindhi community in India. And I'll show you, you don't find now. It was there, it was there with the previous generation. And I'll show you one of the Sindhi people, one of the Sindhi associated with in Pakistan, Sindh, him telling us what this Nanak Panthi culture is about. This is in Shikarpur in
Shikarpur, we Baba Chand's residence to experience his love for Guru Nanak.
नानक बार सर्व कला सुमरत डोलन तेरा को नानक ते करत करत व्रत बरबायो पढ़ियो तो शरणाए नानक की प्रवे नती अपनी भगति कल जो लोग हैं ना वो सिंधी नानक पंथी है, गुरु नानक को वो मानते हैं। बलोच भी जो इधर आते हैं, जो हमारे खास तौर पर हिंदू, वो भी मानते हैं। जो भी हमारे यहाँ मंदिर है, किसी भी उससे रिलीजन है, उसमें गुरु नानक ने जो भी मैसेज दिया है वो प्यार का दिया है। लो किसी निम्रता रखो, मन माया मन दाया, मनो पंखिए आकाश तस्कर निवारिया, मन आकाश में भिटकदड़ पखी वांगुरु माया जे पुठियां पियो जोड़े।
हम गुरु गुरुनाथ दे तो हमारा
All right. So the people who might be interested to understand how this entire community's cultures have got impacted because Punjabis who still have the Sikh community or the followers of Guru Nanak, the Hindu Sikhs or the others who actually moved on to the India side, East Punjab. And I'm going to talk about that, how the narrative changed over 7 decades. But for the Sindhis and Balochis, they lost everything. There are two very nice books that you could probably read. One is The Making of Exile. The Making of Exile is by Nandita Bhavnani, about there are very few works about partition impact on Sindh. There are a lot of works in Punjab, but when I think Nandita has done a very good work in terms of outlining and making us understand the impact in Sindh. But what is the work on the right hand side? Contested practices and identifications of Sindhi Hindus in India and beyond. And this is by Stephen A. Ramley, who did his PhD thesis. Many years back, he came into India, went into the Sindhi community from Uttar Pradesh to Mumbai to Pune into Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh. Understand how this community, which lost its entire land and has no anchorage to any of the historical culture, how have they evolved? Now he titles this book as Hindu, Sufi, or Sikh. I mean, it's a question. Who are these people? When I look at their practices, I can see them as being Sufis. I can see them as being Hindus. I can also see them. So who are they? Don't go by the definition of a Sikh from Punjab. Don't go by a definition of a Sufi from as you see it in Pakistan. Don't go by the definition of a Hindu as you see in the Indian subcontinent, maybe from the regions of UP. Just look at this beautiful community whose boundaries are merging. Who are they? Describes also how they have over a period of time, because of a lot of socio-political issues that have emerged, broader landmass. And of course, now they are seen purely as Hindu, but their forefathers, for them, Ya Allah, Hey Ram was all the same. Right? So this is a beautiful work that you can probably. And of course, then there is, in my book, The Continues Lost Heritage, The Sikh Legacy in Pakistan, I've devoted about 110 pages, but that's trying to understand the community that's still there in Pakistan. What are they doing there right now? So if you put these three pieces of works and you try and study, you'll probably understand what it means when you lose your entire landmass of a culture that for centuries would have grown. Now, we generally talk about much about Punjab. And so I want to bring this presentation to an end, but I want to now focus on Punjab. So what you see in the black line is what British inherited and what became as British India. But the last empire of there was nothing known as India. There were many rulers and kingdoms. British, all they did was they consolidated it over 150 odd years. They came to Calcutta, they moved westwards, and they kept actually acquiring territories. The last region that they acquired was basically the Punjab. In the Second Anglo-Sikh War, the Punjab was totally taken over. The first Anglo-Sikh War happened in 1847, 1849. The Second Anglo-Sikh War, and the entire Punjab, and that's the yellow region that you're seeing, the Lahore region. It was not just Punjab. It is Khyber Pakhtunkhwa area of Punjab, Himachal, Kashmir, and regions of Baltistan, certain regions. That's what the Lahore Darbar was, and that came into the British Empire. Now, and when 1847, they divide this entire landmass of the subcontinent into two regions. But if you look at that yellow region, today the Radcliffe Line, and thereafter the undefined line, which is the line of control. If you vote it as the two sides are sitting on whichever sides and take that line of control as the border, then what you find out is that 70% of the region of the Lahore Darbar is not accessible to the people who moved on the east of So similar to Punjab, similar to Sindh and Balochistan or Afghanistan, where the communities lost their footing, there has been a huge impact on the cultural footprint of this region also. Something is different about this region, and what's different is the fact that the had one tail end of this massive landmass, which was this yellow landmass, dangling, and which is what we call as East Punjab now, which is what is the Punjab in India. Although that Punjab also, from the time it got divided into Haryana, Himachal, and now what we call as Punjab. But this region has its narratives shifting, and all I want to say is out here in a brief, and you'll understand how the narratives have shifted. Pre-partition, if I was to use the term, the Makkah for the followers of Nanak was Nankana Sahib, his birthplace. This is in Pakistan. Presently, very few Sikhs associate Nankana Sahib as the Mecca of the followers of Nanak. It's all the Darbar Sahib in Amritsar, which is also known as the Golden Temple, is what is taken to be as the entire faith. Now, I asked this question: what if the Radcliffe line was not there? Where would the powers be? Where would the cultural powers of present Punjab problem that is grappling with? There was a huge intellectual belt of the region that was in Pakistan, which is the Rawalpindi area, very highly educated class, and some of the highly works of the followers of Nanak were done from that region. The Potohar, the Rawalpindi, and those areas, and they all became homeless, and they had to shift this side. They had to shift their narratives from Nankana Sahib into Amritsar. On this side was primarily an agricultural economy, and I don't want to say this, but there is no system in the believers of Nanak theoretically, but it's still laden with castes. And today's East Punjab problems probably the fact that we have fallen back from those high ideals of Guru Nanak, and I think some of the reasons are because of mass. Yeah, but this shows how the narratives have changed from Nankana to Amritsar. One thing which is very close to my heart is the Muslim bards who used to sing in the Gurdwara still 1947. Because of their faith, they also came under the madness of under the threat of their lives are under risk when the madness of partition happened by all the three communities, Hindus, Muslim, and Sikhs. Descendants of Bhai Mardana, the lifelong friend who traveled with Guru Nanak for 22 years, he was a Muslim. His descendants to be singing in the Gurdwaras till 1947 had to pack their bags and leave for Pakistan, and many of them struggled and found employment opportunity areas, like started singing in hotels, restaurants, or in the not so well established film industry of Pakistan before. But the entire legacy of the kirtan being done by these Muslim bards was impacted severely. This docu-series, we have brought in many strands of that, but I just want to show about one strand from these descendants of Bhai Mardana, what they have to say.
ਤੇ ਮੁxtਲਿਫ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਰਬਾਬੀ ਖਾਨਦਾਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੀ ਹਜ਼ੂਰੀ ਰਾਗੀ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਡਿਊਟੀਆਂ ਸਰ ਅੰਜਾਮ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਸੀ। ਗੋਂਦਵਾਲ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਭਾਈ ਲਾਲ ਜਨਮ ਹੋਇਆ ਤੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੇ ਤਾਇਆ ਜੀ ਹਜ਼ੂਰੀ ਰਾਗੀ ਸੇ ਸੀਸਗੰਜ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ, ਔਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਦਾਦਾ ਜੀ ਭਾਈ ਚਰਾਗ ਦੇ ਇਹ ਹਜ਼ੂਰੀ ਰਾਗੀ ਸਨ ਆਪਣਾ ਗੋਂਦਵਾਲ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਸਾਹਿਬ। ਜਦੋਂ ਪਾਰਟੀਸ਼ਨ ਹੋ ਸਿਲਸਿਲਾ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ। ਭਾਈ ਲਾਲ ਜੀ ਇੱਕ ਬਾਤ ਸ਼ਖਸੀਅਤ ਸੀ, ਆਸ਼ਿਕ ਅਲੀ ਭਾਈ ਲਾਲ ਜੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਆਣ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਥੋੜੀ ਦੁਸ਼ਵਾਰੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੋਈਆਂ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਆਣ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਵਾਲੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ। 19ਵੀਂ ਪੀੜ੍ਹੀ ਆ ਗਈ ਹੈ, ਮਿਹਨਤ ਮਜ਼ਦੂਰੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ, ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਣਾ 4 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਲੱਗਦੇ ਨੇ, ਜਦੋਂ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਕਰਨੇ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਛੱਡਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ। ਔਰ ਸਾਡੀ पूरी कोशिश है कि हम छड़िए ना। और कंग बना जगत गुरा जगत गुरबा
deeply saddened me with the present conditions of the descendants of the Rabawi tradition. Their forefathers were soulful preserved and Bhai Mardana's legacy.
So I'm now just going to this to an end with just 2 or 3 clips about how my emotions in Punjab have been, and where my forefathers had lived and churned a glorious chapter of our history. And I've gone into I've had an opportunity to go in which the Sikh history had churned. Some of them are not accessible to even the local Pakistan. Some opportunities, some divine energy worked in my favor. But you can see that in the Peering Warrior on the YouTube, that documentary is my channel, and see there. I'm going to show the last ending piece of that documentary, and then I'm going to show after that from a site's exploration perspective, where the remnants. I'm not Nankana Sahib, Kartarpur Sahib, well maintained, and there's a positive story in that. What do we learn out of the remnants? And that's where I've dedicated the peer speaks to me internally. And I'm going to show a 1-minute clip there, and then try and bring this to an end with the last clip. So this is about the Peering Warrior. It's a 35-minute documentary on YouTube, focusing on the forts where the Sikh history had churned. This is the last.
Lahore
once the capital of the Sikh, void of the community that had churned its glorious chapters from the city. In 1798, Ranjit Singh climbed the walls of the fort and challenged Shah. "O grandson of Abdali, come down, lodge with the grandson of Charat Singh." Ranjit Singh created a mighty kingdom, which for the first time was ruled by the son of the soil. He halted the perennial invasions of the Indian subcontinent from the northwest. As I stood within the precincts of the Lahore fort, peering at the Athdhara, the eight-gated monument that ruled the mighty kingdom, I was reminded of the painting from the past which depicts the hustle and bustle of the royal court. In that moment, the walls of the Lahore fort echoed a question from within the sounds of silence. Why is it that the glorious chapters that have churned in these lands are totally forgotten by the present generations of Pakistanis and the Sikh community? A few Sikhs who do visit these lands of their forefathers, their desires to explore the legacy footprints is the few functional gurdwaras. Do they not have a responsibility to embrace us, the elements of the Sikh kingdom? As I walked out of the Lahore fort, I do not have an answer to this question of yours.
And on the same tone, this is of course the forts, but I want to actually show 1 minute the ending for the peering soul. Again, the culmination. This is a 50-minute documentary exploring the forgotten spirits of those across 126 cities and villages. And the last piece of that documentary.
Close to the India-Pakistan border, the remains of the historic Jari Sahib Gurdwara faintly whispered to me. It faintly whispered to me. In 1762, Ahmad shot out the Sikhs from the plains of the Punjab. Yet, they did not abandon these native lands of the five rivers. So why in the year 1947 they thoughtlessly abandoned these lands? Did they have a response? The monuments which nourished their spiritual needs for hundreds of years? I touched its side. It is this quest that has brought me to you. I may not be able to comprehend the reasons to perish. Let your soul find peace that finally a descendant of your architects was able to touch. It heaved a sigh of relief and resonated. I can now perish.
So the political events, just summarizing this whole thing now, political events in my mind, through my pursuits that I see, which have fractured Guru Nanak's legacy. Right in the center is the 1947 events, right? But I see the of Guru Nanak's legacy, where it had strengthened from Guru Nanak being 1469 to an empire being formed, and that actually falls into the British and in 1849. That's the first fracture where the seeds of fracture were planted. And then, as British are leaving, dividing heartland, and 1947, it's basically, I've written it wrongly, British annexation, at least 1947 partition. And thereafter, unfortunately, the further damage that has happened is and into the Indian subcontinent. Unfortunately, the sad events of the 1980s history of the Punjab itself, what it went through, has been the other fracture point of the Guru Nanak, right? And today, a lot of water has flown under the bridge, and I want to actually end this presentation hope and positivity, because the way I look at it is that, as I showed in that slide, because I've seen also in the Gangetic Belt, deep down this there used to be this Udasin tradition, the followers of Guru Nanak who inside the Gangetic Belt, who till about 50 years back used to have faith in the Guru Granth scripture. They used to have gurdwaras. They used to have something like the Sindhis, cultures which were porous with very porous boundaries. That culture has got quite fragmented in the Gangetic Belt. But I want to actually end those sites where I went in the search for Guru Nanak's legacy in the Bihar belt, and this old sadhu, because the present days generation of these Udasin sadhus do not associate themselves with Guru Nanak. It's the same story as or the Balochis. Balochis are even impacted more, because Balochis who came primarily into Bombay area, I can figure out from the names, the last names, that this person's lineage is from Balochi Hindus, but they've totally forgotten the entire linkages with Guru Nanak. But here in this video, this 85-year-old sadhu, how he recounts the linkages with Guru Nanak in the region of Bihar, and their present generation, the current generations, have no idea, no clue. And this is the damage. But there is a hope, a message of hope, and with this we'll stop.
We now visit the Lok Seva Ashram and enter in Sonpur city. Here, an elderly Udasin shared the Guru Granth Sahib, the sixth scripture, was enshrined in Shram. According to him, the present generation of Udasin community is no longer a philosophy. However, the elderly Udasins grew up in a tradition in which Guru Nanak their fulcrum.
हमारा गुरु नानक देव के पुत्र श्री चंद्र जी हुए। श्री चंद्र से हम लोग संप्रदाय क्या है कि भोगों से उदास होकर के परम पिता परमात्मा में लग जाना। हमारे अखाड़े हैं, 3 अखाड़े हैं, तीनों है पूरे हिंदुस्तान में, विश्व में घूम घूम कर प्रचार करना। गुरु नानक देव जी को परम पिता परमात्मा का नाम बताया, उनका नाम एक ओम। परमात्मा एक है, एक ओम। सत्मा का तो सत्य है, सारा संसार असत्य है, परमात्मा सिर्फ एक सत्य। उन्होंने सिखाया जब तुम संसार में तुम सुख चाहते हो, परमात्मा का सुमरन करो, सुमरन से तुमको सब कुछ मिलेगा। हमारे गुरु नानक साहब का वाणी है, भाषा नहीं है। भक्त ने अपनी वाणी को रखा, उसी को छापा दिया है। वहाँ कोई भेदभाव नहीं।
Fragmented and conditioned by biases, people glorify separation over celebrating union. Nanak says the glory is in recognizing that we are all interconnected in this world.
का क्या छोड़े मिले का क्या साहिब जिन कर राखे।
So with that message of hope, I will end. Guneeta, I'll just put back the camera.
Yeah, that was really, really fascinating. I hope that compels people to go and look at your, to watch the films. Do you want to tell us a little bit about where you are in terms of releasing, how many you've released, and how people can, watch the films?
Yeah, sorry, you're chopping off, but I...
Looks like
Hello.
you're having some connectivity issues from your end. Yeah, so if you can tell people
Hear
where
me?
they can watch your film, the different episodes.
Okay, I'm gonna put the camera off. Okay, I'm gonna
Sure.
speak without that. Can you hear me now better?
We can hear
Can you
you.
hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. So would you want to tell everybody where they can watch the films to catch, all this incredible...
So the series... So Guneeta, the entire website called thegurunanak.com, just add a "the" before the name of Guru Nanak.
Let me just put it here in the banner.
.com should be simple to remember. We had 24 episodes. It's free of charge. Yeah, it's available free of charge for anyone to see. We have done the entire English version, which has taken us 4 years to make. And we are now releasing the Punjabi version. And we are trying to get the support of the people that right now is to do this entire series in Hindi and thereafter in Urdu and Shah. Vision is big because we see Guru Nanak as a hope of unifying the people across. We want to do it in multiple languages, but we are facing our own sets of challenges.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's just I can imagine, given some of the social issues that we're having in the subcontinent. But I think it's just so absolutely fascinating because there's a huge anthropological element that you bring in. When you remove the faith-based politics, or you remove a lot of the social stigmas, and you go back and you actually look at the cultures and how they've evolved, I think that is really, really fascinating. And it's something that unfortunately isn't really being done in the subcontinent as much. We're not looking at the diversity and evolution of, such diverse, rich cultures that are a part of our heritage. And I think your docuseries kind of gives people a glimpse at that. And I'm so excited about watching all of it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I know we had a lot of technical issues today. So we'd love to have you back sometime. But I think, people can go and watch your docuseries online for free, and they will not encounter the technical issues there. So thank you for introducing everybody to this today, and for this longer episode of 75 Days of Partition. I'm so glad for it. I'm so glad that we got to watch some of those clips and to learn from you. And thank you for joining us. And you guys, everybody else, please feel free to tune in at 8 p.m. Lahore time, 8:30 India.
Thank you very much.
9 p.m. Dhaka tomorrow for continuation of 75 Days of Partition. Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.